This video is brought to you by Sporlin. Quality, integrity, tradition.
This is not new science. This stuff was done in the 50s. We've forgotten that.
So this is our vacuum rig for today. Let's check out the hardware. We've got the NAVAC NRD 16 Tango. We're going to be hooking it up to a single 3-foot long, 3/4 inch inner diameter True Blue evacuation hose. We're going to attach to the evaporator barrel of this centrifugal chiller. The motor itself on the pump is 1 horsepower. Got a 2-stage gas ballast for moisture management. Let's go ahead, check out the pump, make sure it's tight.
Oh, I just disconnected the Bluetooth.
Oh, sorry. We got 716 ready to roll.
All right, so all we're gonna do is just we're just gonna test out the vacuum pump, let her pull down here. So go ahead and kick that on. And what we want to make sure is just that we can pull a nice deep vacuum. Make sure we can pull down below, obviously below 50 microns. This is a much higher grade pump. As you can see now.
$22,800 and something.
That's microns per second? Yeah.
109 microns per second, 110.
Holy shit.
Did you guys get paid by the hour?
There's nothing that's slowing down the flow back. Yeah. It's just hogging off.
But getting those guys to understand
1140.
You know, you can slide your finger on this thing. It'll tell you how far you're in as far as time, how far you're in.
Oh, okay.
So here's the funny part. Where they want you to be at 5,000 microns. Oh, come on.
18 minutes.
Well, we let it run for a minute or two first, remember?
Yep.
So it would have been about 16 minutes. 5,000 microns, call it 18 minutes.
You may have gotten confused just now. They call for what? 5,000 what? Microns? Yeah, exactly. Believe it or not, if you consult the manufacturer literature for this 2,500 ton centrifugal chiller, you will find under Section 3 to operate the vacuum pump in accordance with vacuum dehydration until a wet bulb temperature of 32 degrees Fahrenheit or a pressure of 5 millimeters of mercury is reached. If we check the corresponding chart and we find 5 millimeters of mercury, we see that that translates to a 5,000 micron vacuum level. Now, of course, no chiller mechanic worth his salt is going to tell you they actually are only pulling their machines down to 5,000 microns. That said, I just wanted to point out why we had that 5,000 number, and we're showing how incredible it was to have achieved that in 18 minutes. In addition to that, while we will always try to at least get to 500 microns, it generally takes up to several days to do so, with multiple oil changes and often having problems with it holding afterward. So again, back to achieving the manufacturer's required vacuum levels in 18 minutes. Sound impossible? Well, it probably is. But in that moment, we were none the wiser.
Just grab some lunch, placing bets on where the micron reading will be when we get back. My money's on 2,500. We just hit 2 hours. 2 hours of vacuum time. So when we got back from lunch, we actually noticed an increase in our vacuum. We actually got up to almost 3,800 from the low point that we had seen this morning, which was 31 something. And no, it wasn't because we froze all the moisture inside the chiller. Ah! And no, we did not suck all the seals and O-rings out of the system because the vacuum was too powerful. Well, sure enough, just on a hunch, one of the guys goes around to the other side of the barrel where I hooked up the micron gauge, and sure as yours truly forgot to tighten back the packing nut from when I loosened it to open that stem. As soon as he saw that, he went ahead and he tightened it up, and you can actually see that reflected in the graphing of the BlueVac app. That spike, that sudden spike in pressure occurred from the, the jostling motion of getting that wrench over the nut. And as soon as he snugged it back up, you see a huge descent into deeper vacuum immediately after that. And now within 3 or 4 minutes, we're back to the original point, if not lower, of our vacuum before we went to lunch. Crazy.
So crazy, in fact, that it was still not reality. Soon after that recording, we witnessed the pressure begin to curve upwards again, slowly but steadily. After another few minutes of observation, we decided to break the vacuum with nitrogen and start the evacuation again.
You can call me stupid. Listen, you can call me sheep. You can say I'm lazy. You can say I'm weak. You think that using her would get to me. And if you're right, then you're in trouble, D. 'Cause I won't break, no, I know I won't wait. You're in trouble, D.
So we've broken the system with nitrogen and we started our pull down again. And the one thing we noticed immediately was, hold on one second. We had a big stall in the vacuum. So where we saw initially on our pull down an almost immediate plummet into vacuum, this time we had a stall for like 30-40 minutes. It finally started to come down after that, and sort of in the same trajectory as the first time. And like clockwork, you saw the trending of the graph line begin to curve slightly up again, just like the last time, at about the same point. This is both interesting and puzzling. We're not quite sure yet 100% why that's happening. It's not a leak, and I highly doubt the presence of much moisture. But at this point, we've started the second pull down at, a little after 3 p.m. So we may not even be able to stay here and watch the final pull down. We may have to come back tomorrow morning and see what happens at this point, which is discouraging because this was pretty incredible. That first few minutes that we had that on the pump, and we thought this was something just, out of this world fast. So I'll say this, even if we get it pulled down by tomorrow morning to, the sub 1,000, even around 500 range, this will still be a huge success and extremely impressive. So we'll see what happens. I really don't know what's going to happen at this
It's Friday morning and I'm heading over bright and early back to the coolant plant to see what happened. Because for me, it's a crapshoot at this point. I really don't know what to expect. Nothing happened the way I anticipated, good or bad. It really makes me figure that, you know, most systems, even a 2-ton split system, if you're doing a repair on it, it's going to have some residual refrigerant left in the system, whether that's in the crankcase oil of the compressor, you know, trapped in the evaporator, something like that. So, you know, you would think that you would always have this kind of result. But what we may be seeing here is just where this is such an astronomical volume compared to a smaller system like that, it may just be a blip, you know, in the trending of the BlueVac app that's never noticed by the naked eye. It's really hard to say. And if that is the case, that's pretty freaking awesome that we were able to basically blow up the resolution by increasing the volume of what we're doing the test on. And it'll be a really neat thing to keep in mind from now on for all of you, that when you are on larger systems, that this may be something that you need to expect and anticipate, that initially on a pull down, you may see a drop and then a small curve upward before you truly hit that point of zero atmosphere that you'll start to really pull down deep. Anyways, I'm pulling up, guys. Fingers crossed, let's check it out. So actually, if you recall at the very beginning of this video, I actually kind of spoiled the fun and showed you our final results on the pull down. In case you forgot what those numbers were, let's go ahead and roll back the video, get back to the beginning so you can see when I went back into the coolant plant. So a pretty awesome experience, awesome result. And if you notice, this video really had two narratives to it. One is the extremely impressive performance that we saw from the tools we used to conduct this experiment. The NAVAC pump was a hell of a machine that, after all of that, never got its oil changed one time. We had 2 micron gauges set up, one at the pump and one at the absolute farthest point from the pump itself, which was on top of the condensing barrel of the chiller. As you could see, we had 100 microns at the pump, we had 288 at the condenser barrel. That is an extraordinarily low number to be able to hit on a machine with that volume in that duration of time. Another thing to note, I didn't shoot any video of it, I did get a snapshot, but that was on Friday. We left that machine on a vacuum through the weekend, and I showed back up Tuesday morning to pick up my step ladder, get my micron gauge, my garden hose, and a couple other tools that I left behind. We left that machine on a vacuum because 1, I wanted to see how it decayed over that kind of period of time, and 2, that machine's not being started up till probably March or April, so it's got plenty of time for us to do another final pull down that we'll actually have a video of as well. And 3, frankly, we used the rest of the nitrogen on that nitrogen skid when we broke it during the evacuation process. Anyways, I'm getting on track here. I went back, and we're talking over 96 hours later, I went and I took a picture of our micron reading at that point. We had only risen to 891 microns in over 96 hours. The micron difference between the 288 initial vacuum and the 891 5 days later breaks down to 0.08 microns an hour raise in pressure. As an industry standard, we look for no more than 1 whole micron per minute rise as an acceptable decay level during our tests. In other words, our decay rate was 12 times lower than the acceptable rate on an equipment decay test. This job was a testament to that pump and that True Blue hose kit as one hell of a combo and a team in attacking a deep vacuum for a machine of that size. The second narrative to this video was obviously the bigger picture, that we learned a lot about conducting precise and deep vacuum
vacuums on machines of that size. I hope this was an entertaining video for everybody involved and everybody viewing it today. I'm gonna wrap this up by heading back to last week, sitting down with Jim in the office of that cooling plant, shooting some thoughts around and debriefing Jim Bergmann style, because all the science here of evacuation is his passion, his wheelhouse, and he knows bigger words than me. So guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Why did we get that false sense of something amazing that morning?
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy because you know, I had sat down and run some calculations beforehand. I'm thinking, okay, well, it's going to be like 3 hours before we even see the gauge move. Even as big as a pump is, the hoses are, and this is a 2,500 ton machine. Why is the pressure going up? And what we were actually seeing was, and it really helped understanding a little bit later, that the machine had been test run before it was shipped. And when you have a machine that big, what they do is they take, and when they recover the gas out, they just take it down to 0 pounds. They don't actually pull it all the way down to nothing. And so what you end up having is you got residual oil and things in there, and you can have upwards of 100 pounds of refrigerant still in that machine after it's been pulled down to 0. So when they charged it back up with nitrogen, what we were seeing was a mixture of refrigerant and nitrogen. Now, refrigerant will make that sensor act erratically, and it'll read deeper vacuum than we actually had. And then when we started pulling the machine, all of a sudden we started stirring that up in there, and we exposed the sensor to refrigerant, and we pulled it down. We probably did actually get it down into the 2,000–3,000 micron range, but then what we saw was as you remove the refrigerant, whether it's air or refrigerant, and we pull a vacuum, we're actually pulling it down to nothing. So there's no air, no refrigerant, no nothing. So that whether you have air in the machine or refrigerant in the machine, eventually it will converge to 0 and give you an accurate micron reading. The refrigerant just becomes a non-factor in the system because there's a void of anything in a vacuum.
Right.
So what was really cool with this thing was you know, we were seeing that transitional phase, and I have never seen it before because I've never been on equipment this big before. But this was a huge learning experience. For us, this is like invaluable because now we've seen something and we can explain it because other people are going to see the same phenomenon. So right now, this morning, we got this thing pulled back down. You know, after we broke it with nitrogen, we saw that, wow, this is a whole different characteristic, but we saw the exact same curve again, but at a higher level.
Sure, and we had that curve identical, but we had, preceding that, we had a much longer initial time, of no changes at all. So I guess what you're saying
probably
is,
like 10 minutes versus almost 30–40 minutes before we actually saw the vacuum gauge start to move the second time.
Right, which was concerning initially to figure that out why, but now you're saying it's because we had a lot less refrigerant in there, and it wasn't influencing the gauge as much, but we still saw the influence, even a small amount of refrigerant on the second pull down. Right.
But after we got this, we started this back up around 3 o'clock. This morning, 8 o'clock, we come in here and it's at 120 microns on the gauge next to the pump, and 300 microns, 311, I think, up at the top of the
top of the barrel.
This was a absolutely incredible experience. This mechanical room is literally a work of art. I wish some of you guys could appreciate. You just can't, when you come in and you see, how many 6 chillers in here?
There's 6.
It is absolutely amazing, and you don't really get perspective of this all the time in here, but just because you can't, till you physically see how big it is, it's something you got to see in person, but it is absolutely amazing. I think the pump, the other thing I think worth noting, we pulled down that entire machine on one batch of oil.
We didn't change it, and not only did we not change it, it's not moisture laden. We still can valve it off, right?
Yeah, and the pump still pulls down to 4 microns. When we isolated the hose, we isolated the barrel from the pump. We tested it beforehand and pulled down about 1–2 microns. We isolated and it pulled down to about 4 microns. And that's a real good indicator the oil is still in very good shape. And the type of oil that's used in these NAVAC pumps is a specialty oil. It's designed for long-term operation. And the pump has got a management system for moisture that'll help. It's got a 2-stage ballast in there that'll help. We didn't have to open the ballast on this because it was pulled down from the factory, so we knew it was fairly dry to begin with. But the moral of the story here is that not only did we get it done a lot faster, but we didn't consume any oil. And we could actually, I don't know there's any reason we'd even change this oil as well as it's performing and as dry as it is. We'll consult with NAVAC on that. But these pumps are designed to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and from what I can see in the manual on there, The only way that you determine the oil is actually going bad is by performance testing the oil. And right now the oil is performance testing very, very well. We thought that somewhere along the line, because we had 1/4-inch ports, that we couldn't evacuate any faster than a 1/4-inch hose. And that can't be further from the truth. The hose itself is what causes the friction losses. It's called conductance speed. And so there's no reason that we would want to take longer to evacuate, except we just forgot how to do it as an industry. Hooking up multiple 1/4-inch hoses is not going to fix the problem, because we know that we can only pull to 400 microns at the end of that hose. On the end of the True Blue hose, we're pulling down to 3 or 4 microns, more than a couple microns what the pump will do. So we have all this pumping capacity, we're moving it all the way into the chiller. And I just think, I honestly would love to go back in time and talk to these guys, because I bet you they were doing back then what we're doing in days, and we just forgot as an industry how to do it. We've learned how to use technology without understanding how it works sometimes. And you know, for those of us that are a little bit like to do that and learn that stuff, it's a revelation. You know, we're not breaking new ground, we're rediscovering old paths, and we're finding out that, wow, there's a lot of value in what the guys did before us. You know, we really got to appreciate all that we've lost along the way and try to relearn it.